Hi guys. So I know I'm supposed to do a spiritual warfare video, but I had this dream that took several days to decode, and I have to get this one out first. I had this on June 16th, 2022, and I'm going to try and talk fast because this was the longest dream with the most details that I've ever had. So we're going to get right to it. Okay, so at first I thought this was going to be a personal dream. It seemed pretty cut and dry that my husband was going to have another cardiac event, and then we would be invaded at that time, and then we would go off to heaven. But then as I started thinking about this dream, I was like, none of these details add up. This is not what that means. So I started really praying about it, and I started looking at different scriptures and, you know, just kind of musing with it. And then it all started coming together. And for about 5 days, I just kept getting more and more downloads that God was like, no, this also means this, and you should try that and look at this, you know. So this is how it goes. Okay, so in the dream, my husband was in the hospital, the emergency room, with really bad edema and heart failure. I know, sounds like we just went through this. Now, when the people were out of the room, I laid hands on him and prayed for complete healing, which did not happen at our hospital situation, okay? And he was healed instantly. And as they ran tests, they could not find anything wrong with him, but they wanted to keep him for observation. The insurance wasn't going to let him stay in the ER, so they transferred him to a very nice, very fancy room. And as soon as we got there, they ran every test they could find, but they could not find one single thing wrong with him. So the insurance said he had to go to a different kind of hospital. It was an outpatient hospital that you stayed at, which that doesn't make sense. And his family could come and they would provide a bed for each of us. And we would get 24/7 monitoring on him, but we had to ride by ambulance or we couldn't be admitted. And when you arrived, they would give you a hospital room with more beds. In the new outpatient hospital, they could more continuously monitor you, adjust your medications if needed, so that you could feel better. I mean, that was their overarching goal. So the last I saw my husband, he was sitting up in the bed of the hospital, the really nice hospital room, waiting for transport. Now I went down to the loading zone and the transport ambulance was there, but my husband was missing and no one knew where he was. So the ambulance finally convinced me to get in and go with them. And they said my husband was probably being taken by another ambulance and he would probably arrive there first. Then they made me ride on the gurney, which was very uncomfortable because I was like, there's nothing wrong with me. Why are you putting me on a gurney? So we got to the next hospital-like place and it was not very nice at all. All of the walls were a faded blue. The paint was chipped and there were cracks in the walls. There were no elevators, only ramps to change floors, and they were not kidding about more beds per room, because instead of like 1 or 2 beds per hospital room, this place was something like a third world hospital with the first room I passed by when I entered had 12 beds crammed together like a 1920s orphanage. It was dirty. There was no privacy, not even a single privacy curtain. There were several lines of people. Each line was similar to a line if you were going to board a flight like Southwest or something, with people just kind of crammed into a holding zone. And it was a very loose type of line. The holding zones were so long, they twisted around like a theme park ride and up and down these ramps on each floor of the hospital. The blue in this ramp type area and the line area was more of a deep royal navy blue, and the floors were rubberized, like for shock safety for those people who work with electricity. And the rubber went halfway up the walls. And then above that, the paint returned to the dirty blue chipping paint that the rest of the hospital walls had. At the front of the line, there was a dictatorial general or something, and she was checking everyone's bags. Now, I was wondering where my husband was. So when I got to the front of the line, I was thinking about asking this general, but I could see that she was very grumpy. Now, when I saw this general up close, I knew in the dream that she did not want to be doing the job. Next to the general was a woman who's been in 3 or 4 of my dreams. She was wearing a tangerine colored sleeveless top and shorts, and wire-rimmed glasses. This was the general's assistant. She wrote down everything the dictatorial general had to say. It was also difficult to tell if the general was male or female. He seemed to have both traits. This person was Asian and very overweight and had a male military-style haircut under what I would call a female's hat. He or she was in the military blue formal man's uniform with much proof of past wars because of all of the fruit salad all over the left pocket. But in the hat was a clue that this may not be a man, because it was pure blue like the uniform was, but it was in the shape of England's 1940s female uniform hat. Now their army was all in solid OD green, just like a U.S. Army had back in the Korean conflict, and the outfits looked identical to the MASH TV show. They were dressed just like that. So some were in t-shirts, some were in button-down tops, some were in hats, some had no hat. They were not wearing customary black boots though, but they were wearing Nike athletic shoes with soft soles, and no one could be heard moving about. The one thing about their outfits that stood out is how messy and sloppy their outfits were for being a part of the military. Now, as we arrived, the military had come up on this rundown hospital and took it over and fully occupied it floor by floor with guns, and would not allow people to move out of the room they were in. As each person came to the front of the line, they had to be questioned by the general, and depending on the answers or what you had on your person, you would be taken to a place within the hospital. Now, I got to go to the front of the line finally, and I figured I might as well be honest. So, God has my back, whatever will happen, was what was in my mind. I just figured I would trust him to see me through it. So the blue general was checking my bag, and it felt very invasive emotionally, like serious lack of privacy, and she was somewhat belligerent. And she pulled out my wallet, which was filled with money, mostly $100 bills, and there were thousands and thousands of dollars in there. She counted it, and she made note of exactly how much there was, but I had no idea how much it was. Then she looked through my photos, and she made note of every single person and what their name was, and she numbered them. Her assistant, the one in the light tangerine, was writing down all of this on a particle board clipboard with a single sheet of paper. The paper sheet was like a digital recording or something. The sheet of paper had some sort of transparent glowing feature to it, so I assumed it to be digital. All she had to do was write it down, and I had a knowing it went to the cloud. She asked my name, and apparently what I told her matched my ID card. And apparently I had a knowing that because I was polite and smiled and was not rude, angry, violent, or belligerent back, then I was given a better room. Now, as they were walking me to my room, the soldier's green outfit transformed into the classic white nurse's outfit. I suppose they were supposed to fool those who were already in the rooms, that they were helpful and not military. As we were walking to the room, I asked the soldier where my husband was, explaining that he was in the ER and then the hospital room, and after testing he was supposed to be coming here. And he said, "Oh, the general didn't want any problems, so they let him go free way back at the last hospital. They let many of those patients go free, actually." And then I knew that most of those patients were expected to die, and that the dictatorial general did not care. It just meant less work for him or her. The soldier said only the visitors at the hospital were rounded up and brought here. I was not happy. So I started praying. We arrived to my room, and I was given my purse. And I was left in an empty room with literally nothing in it, and with the door wide open. Now, the room we were assigned to had a bed for my husband, which was empty. But it was very nice and fully automatic, high-tech hospital bed. It looked quite comfortable, but I knew I was not allowed to even sit on it. It was reserved and very special somehow. Then I turned to my right, and the next bed I noticed was propped up in the sitting position with cozy blankets, a dated hospital bed, and my mother was in this bed. It was about 10 inches from the blue wall, and she was overly happy to see me, like a puppy who hasn't seen their person all day. And I was like, "What are you doing here?" And she said, "Oh, this is the room they took me to. I'm so happy to see someone I know that is here." I was a little nervous. I said, "Are you sick? Are you feeling okay?" She said, "No, I'm fine. I'm just here to see your husband." And I said, "Did you have to wait in that line out there?" She said, "No, I've been here a while." I felt very irritated that she was being included in my 24/7, quote, family room. Like my husband and I would have no privacy to talk. Then she was saying how excited she was to see my husband, and then she wondered when he was arriving. I said, "I don't know. Things are a little messy right now." I said, "Well, if you are in that bed, if he arrives and he's in his bed, then where am I going to sleep?" And then she said in a very inconsiderate tone, "I don't know." Like, that's your problem. So then, instantly, a bed appeared past her bed, and it was folded. It was like those beds for kids if you ever stayed at a very nice hotel and they bring it up to your suite, so a preschooler can have a real bed and not sleep in a playpen. But this mini bed was like something from a bad movie, rusted metal with rusted springs, with an old classic prison striped mattress and no sheets. It was covered in stains. It seemed to be from some horror hospital from Nazi Germany or something. I was like, "There's no way I'm using this bed." So I just kept standing uncomfortably near the door. Some time passed, and I was trying to peek outside and see what was going on around me without actually stepping out of the doorway, which I knew I was not allowed to do. We were all sort of prisoners in each of these hospital rooms. Now at this point, the Blue General was doing her rounds to see what was going on in each room. She came to our room, and she looked through my bag again, and this time without the tangerine lady, and she looked especially hard at my large collection of photos, and she counted them all. And then she said, "You have not removed any or hidden any of your friends or your money. All your money is here. All your friends are here." I had a knowing that people were hiding pictures of their favorite people to protect them and hiding money or other things that they found very important to keep them from the general. So anything that was idolized or highly valued was attempted to be kept secret or hidden. Since none of mine were hidden, I did not have anything I was trying to hide that was some secret idol or valuables. I questioningly said, "Yes," inferring like, "What do you mean by that? Why are you asking me? Why are you saying all my money's here? Of course it is." She said, "I knew I liked you. You're honest. I'm going to make you my right-hand man, but you have to prove yourself. If you prove yourself, then you will get a better room and 3 months of rest without chores, and you will have better food than everyone else." Now, I should mention that not only was the tangerine woman not next to her, but when I looked back in my room, my mother was gone. And at that moment, and I should also notice that we were on the very first floor of this hospital type thing. So at that moment, a bunch of the general's soldiers came tumbling in some double doors at the end of the hallway. And they had been tossed about by a whirlwind, and they brought in a puff of sand and all the dust with them. Some of the soldiers were on the floor, others caught themselves against the wall, but the impact of whatever they had gone through was obviously very violent toward them. One soldier approached and quietly spoke to the general, and then the soldiers left back outside. The general said, "I know the tasks you will have to do to earn your keep with me." I cautiously said, "Well, what might that be?" She said, "There is sand by the gate." Now, at this point in the dream, I knew exactly what the gate looked like, and I knew that there was a gated community or something, and the gate had curled black wrought iron, and the gate is supposed to be closed, but I knew it was open at this point. I do not know which side of the gate or the community or the city that this particular hospital was in at this point in the dream. He or she, the general, said to me, "There's sand by the gate, and every time our army drives over it, it swirls up into a whirlwind and makes a big mess and lots of trouble for my soldiers. I need you to go sweep up the sand and return. Then you will get what I promised you." Suddenly, the tangerine assistant showed up, and she handed me keys to a car and a ratty old handmade broom you might see from the Middle Ages. And at this point, I was very tired, and I knew that it was oppressively hot outside. And I was like, Lord, give me strength. I cannot do this, but I must do this job. And as the tangerine woman walked me out past the guards, she said, I do not agree with this. I want you to go sweep up the sand and then come back, because I have a plan to help free more prisoners. But I need you to earn the trust of the general in order to make it happen. She knew I could just leave, because here I was being given a car with keys. I trusted her in the dream, like she was secretly on our side all of a sudden. So I took the keys and I got into the white convertible. It was a Mercedes with the top down, and I drove for a while. I somehow knew my way to the gate. But before I got there, I saw my husband, who was standing on the corner of a small one-way street on my left. And I said, hey, good looking, what are you doing out here? And he said, come with me, I have a surprise. And I was like, what the heck? I'll sweep up the sand really fast later. So I said, okay, but I only have a second. So I drove very slowly behind him as he walked up this narrow one-way street. And it seemed like a few homes were under construction, but the houses were spaced extraordinarily far apart. And he walked up to the house and said, here, I want you to see this house. At that very second, a man in a gray GMC Jimmy drove past the house just as the tangerine woman came out of the house. And by this time, her glasses had clear plastic rims, and the man in the gray truck looked very slowly at the house, and then he kept driving up the street, and he turned around and he went back down the one-way street, out and off to the road. Now my husband said, oh, don't break my heart. Please don't tell me you already locked the door, when he spoke to the realtor. And she said, a realtor always has the key. Did you want to see it again? Now, if you didn't catch it, the tangerine woman now is a realtor, okay? He said, yes, look, my wife showed up, and I want her to see the house. I want to be sure she likes it. He said, come on, get out. It will only take a second. So I parked my car in the middle of the street, right in front of the pure white house, and I got out and I went up to the front of the house. Now, the front of the house was pretty unique. Dead center, where you expect a door to be, there were some flowering bushes, and this was all against a white wall. Now, on both the left and the right, perpendicular to this wall, were doors. Very skinny, very narrow, very tall, beautiful French style doors. They were 3/4 glass, 1/4 wood, painted white, and they were kind of like Louisiana style. There's a lot of architecture where the doors are perpendicular and they face, something. So these two doors faced each other. Now, both doors led into the home, but the realtor had unlocked the left door. So that's the door that we went through. Now, the place was a little bit busy for me at first, especially after being in the dreary blue hospital prison. It was an adjustment to take in all the bright and the colors and all the beauty. Now, the first room, which I got only a glance of, was the living room with multiple beautiful flower arrangements with pink, purple, yellow, and white flowers in pure silver vases. The flowers that I do recall were light pink roses, soft creamy yellow roses, gardenias, lily of the valley, lavender, white and green hydrangeas, and the greenery were silver dollar eucalyptus leaves and myrtle leaves. And the furniture was casual, but somehow also formal. It was a French style, very inviting, all white. And I knew that there were rooms in every direction, sort of like a fan. If you imagine like an old Asian fan, each piece of that fan, where it's the structure pieces, where it triangularly fans out and gets wider and wider, from that living room, it seemed to have like a fan of halls, and each of the halls went out and the house got broader and broader and broader, and down each of these halls it was many rooms. It was very deceptively large. So my husband, though, As I'm zooming past all of this, my husband led me directly to the beautiful bedroom. And he said, "What do you think? Do you want to consummate the marriage?" And I thought in my mind, "But we're already married." And he said, "I know, but this is the house, right? The one to consummate the forever marriage in, right?" And I knew he meant consummate the eternal marriage. And he said, "So, do you like it?" And I said, "Oh, I so badly would love to say yes, but I promised I would sweep away all the sand by the gate. And this job will somehow allow me to set more prisoners free." That realtor, she works for the dictator, but she is on our side and she has a plan, but I have to earn the trust of the general first. My husband picked me up as if picking up a feather-weighted child and hugged me like a child would hug a favorite teddy bear. And then he said, "Well, okay, I'll let you go back, but I wanted to know if this was the house, to tell the realtor." And as we were leaving the house, I said, "I think so, but it's super charming for sure, and I love the flowers, and it feels like love in here, but I didn't even get to see every room. But I can't think about that right now. I have to go. I have to get more people to safety." I thought in my head, well, he knows me so well that he will pick the perfect place. And then he said out loud, "I have the perfect house, and I will have it when you return." And then I could understand that his mind was thinking, he was joyfully thinking this too, "It will probably be this one." Now, there was an excitement in his tone that was a mix between a super excited child and a husband who wants nothing more than to please his wife. Jump back in the Mercedes, excited to sweep the sand, and more excited to get back to see my husband, who clearly was fully healed, even though the general thought he was dead. I left on my mission to sweep the sand with joy in my heart, looking forward to my returning home. So that's the dream, and now I'm going to break it down. The hospital is the church. Congestive heart failure says that Christ's heart was broken, and there's so many tears that it's flooding his body. Only the bride could heal him. The bride's faith is what healed Christ's heart. The doctors are the faithless pastors. They tried all the world's methods. They did not understand Christ's heart. They give Christ a nice room while they try their own wisdom to help. A traumatic event occurs. A field hospital workers, they are deceptive. 24/7 monitoring by the New World Order government via AI. The insurance and security was not in the Holy Spirit, but in the world's wisdom for protection. The outpatient hospital represents the churches that use the world's methods and wisdom, and many unsaved are inside. It seems like Christ is there, but it's a counterfeit. The guards are the demon leaders. No quick way out. No privacy, and AI and hearts are revealed. UN Blue. Walls are the structure of the church. The UN world controls via laws agreed upon by the majority of society. The floors were New World Order Blue. The floors are the foundation. So the rubber represents deception to deflect the shock and numb the left behind regarding the rapture. An outpatient is a person who receives treatment without being admitted, so the not saved. They appeared to be Christians. They blindly followed the directions of the world, and that insurance plan led to medical help. No discernment, questioning, or wisdom. That's how they ended up here. England is the head or the brains of the New World Order Army tactics. China is the enforcer via AI. Female-male confusion, non-binary agenda of the New World Order. Many wars equal knowledge for entrapment. Fat government equals too much power via control of through AI. The AI worker works for the New World Order. The AI worker later converts to Christianity. When she's working for the New World Order, wire is the conductor, circle means continuous, uploads to the cloud. This gives AI government control. When she later becomes a Christian, she has plastic, non-conductive glasses, and she has clear rims, which are clear vision through Christ. She becomes a realtor or an evangelist. The demon army has been long at work, not well disciplined. Sneaky and quiet methods came at a high cost. The cost is their soul has to go to hell. The green is the vehicle, the green movement. MASH, Mobile Army Surgical Hospital, Moving Military Precision Church. Nike is the goddess of victory. They are planning to win. They have been fighting a war the whole time. They allowed demonic leadership.
They didn't see it coming. They fell for the deception because they had no spiritual armor on, no discernment, no prayer. The Blue General has oversight on all the money and all the social interactions via mandates and AI. It's very invasive, and the AI labor appears normal. The demon-led leadership in the church, um, they turned into nurses. That's a deception to appear helpful. They will reinforce the New World Order goals. My valuables were given back as a test. Christ had a nice place reserved for him post-rapture. They were waiting for his arrival. He was waiting to be asked in. The hospital or the church, they did not realize that the Christians were gone. They believed the deception. The comfortable were faithless, seated, not working, passive, old, unwilling to change. Then at this point, they noticed I was gone. 10 inches away from the wall, 10 is the number of judgment. Wonder when the rapture is, evidence that they believed the deception and still selfish and did not care and loveless for others. The folded bed represents it's not for a resident. It was unclean, not fit for a bride, not fit for a soldier. My new body did not need the sleep. If then, temporal rewards for going along with the agenda. When these two were gone, that represented the rapture of the church. The gate is the place between heaven and earth. The tornado is the rapture, trouble for the demons. Every time, they said, that means it's not the first time. Double doors is the opposite of the narrow way, and suf is the Hebrew for like a rolling thing, carrying away everything before it, which is exactly what happened to the soldiers. The general wanted the Christians to be killed, raptured, and taken out of the way, and their army was in a spiritual warfare. I knew the tangerine woman meant that the Christians needed to be taught, rescued, helped, and cleansed. I was so tired, which is fatigued from working. So hot represents summer and the climax of a difficult event. The summer harvest will be the climax of difficulties for God's people and the workers because the last harvest will have the most stubborn group, and this will be right before Armageddon. The tangerine woman gave me all the tools that I needed to complete the job, and the broom was especially poor because she really did not want the job done the same way the general did. Convertible means the sun shines on. White is purity. Mercedes means mercies or rewards. Between the gate is between heaven and earth. That's where I was heading. I only saw my husband because I was looking. We went on the one-way street, like the one way to heaven. The homes being built were for tribulation converts. The distance apart shows how spacious. I was following in his footsteps for ministry. A vehicle is often ministry. The gray GMC Jimmy represents the Freemasons who are familiar with how to get to heaven, but they choose not to for personal gain. In their own belief, the GMC, G stands for Mars, Red, 3, Tuesday, Zeus, Hades, Osiris, Hell. M stands for Mercury, Orange, Wednesday, Thoth, Hermes, Loki, Scribes, Time, Quest for Immortality, and Babylon. And then C stands for the same thing as G, so it begins and ends with Zeus, and the reason for it is immortality and Babylon. Jimmy is from Demetrios in Acts 19. It's a direct translation. He was a silversmith of the idol for Diana in Ephesus, and he was also a salesman. He started riots to run Paul and his friends out of town. Some of those people got put into jail, and the people worshiped Diana in the streets that day. The realtor was now an evangelist. She had the keys to the kingdom because of her clarity. Jesus said, "Oh, don't break my heart. Is the door locked? Because he wants all to come to him and none to perish." The narrow doors represent the narrow gate, and they were 3/4 window, so they let in and let out a lot of light. The plant in the middle that made the house feel very hidden was a way to camouflage the building and or heaven. The first room I saw was the living room, which puts others first. I was overwhelmed every time I arrived. It was deceptively large. Heaven is represented with this furniture of being relaxed, inviting, beautiful, but with some formality. Gardenias Trust, love, purity, and weddings. Hydrangea. White is purity and grace. Green is rebirth, renewal, tranquility, both used for weddings. Pink rose is grace and joy. Lavender, we used to be 1 month salary in the first century, so it makes it valuable. It's for relaxation, calm, devotion, and a holy anointing. Silver dollar eucalyptus means to cover well, the holy separation between heaven and earth. Myrtle leaves mean grace, mercy, divine protection, Esther and Sukkot. And the lily of the valley means spring work, good harvests, delicate kindness, weddings, and this is related to Shushan Purim. We were already married, but when the full harvest comes in, the full marriage covenant can be put in force forever for all of God's people. Finalizing the marriage is a high priority. Permission had to be granted in order for me to go back and do another rescue mission. The hug of a child is the most pure, sincere love. I had to stay super focused over my heart's desire. I was able to get a glimpse, but not fully to explore my new home. The depth of the relationship allowed me to have full trust that he would choose what was right. The place felt like love, agape love that has the best interests of the other in mind. This was first used in Song of Solomon 2. The world does not believe that God is alive, and it will be a huge shock when the consequences come. Here's a copy that you can screenshot of timeline and recap that I made in order to help me put this in order. There's a lot more details than I can put in this video for time, and maybe you can screenshot it and take a better look at it. I'm not going to talk through it. There are harvests and verses connected with each of these concepts, and I just think it has a lot of really cool information. I just honestly, in my life right now, I do not have time to give this interpretation what it deserves, but I thought I needed to get this out. So I hope you guys have a good day, and see you next time when I can pull together some time to do this.